This is episode 376 of the 3 Point Podcast. We're presented by the Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center, the Memorial Orthopedic Walk-In Clinic, now available for those sports-related injuries, Mondays through Fridays, 8 to noon, no appointment needed. Our other great partners include AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Nichols Painting, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, not only licensed in Michigan, they can also help you out in California, Colorado, Florida, and Texas. Also on board, Shiawassee County Fair and ALS of Michigan. Well, it's just Matt and I for this podcast. Jared came down with a nasty case of the flu, and we hope he feels better soon, because I know he's got a few thoughts that he'd like to get on the table, but unfortunately not able to join us tonight. But Matt, we're pretty excited because we are going to be joined by award-winning author John U. Bacon to discuss his latest book, The Gales of November, The Untold Story of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Talk a little bit about Michigan football as well, because he's a big Michigan man, and we'll get his take on the Wolverines. And also looking forward to our chat with West Michigan Whitecaps play-by-play man Dan Hasty, talking about their record-setting season. This should be a fun one, and we'll miss Jared, but I think we'll do all right, the two of us.
Yeah, we'll be able to handle it. We're seasoned professionals, right? But no, I know Jared. If these are two interviews that he would have been all about. That these are two he would have been excited for. So if he's having to step aside, he must really not be feeling good. I was going to say, are we going to be able to make the jokes about him not being a gamer that he always made about you, or
I don't know. I was thinking it. Let me tell you, I was thinking it. I remember I got dogged early on in our podcast career. I had in fact, it was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 pods in where I had my left hip replaced and couldn't. And that in those days, remember, I was recording you two guys. I had to climb the steps at the radio station. It was quite a feat, and I had a hip replaced. So yeah, he dogged on me for a long time for that.
Yeah, so he better really be. What was in the text? He said he can't even open his eyes. It's so bad. So he better not be embellishing on that anymore. But no, these are two interviews. I mean, John U. Bacon, he's one of my favorite authors.
Great author.
He's got a bunch of books. The Gales of November will be a really good one. I've mainly only read his sports books on Michigan football, but just a really good author. So I know that Gales in November is going to be good. And yeah, the West Michigan Whitecaps, I mean, they're having a historic season. So thought it'd be really cool. We appreciate the play-by-play side of sports, with Dan Hasty calling those games. So these will be two really fun interviews.
Absolutely right. So we'll get it going right after this.
The Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center is a fantastic addition to the area. Start your wellness journey today by signing up for a membership. Get new member discounts off a yearly membership and your enrollment fee. Membership gets you full use of the workout equipment, fitness classes like Pilates, yoga, spin, and many others. Run, jog, or walk around the 3rd floor SkyTrack, and after your workout, relax in the steam room or sauna. Enjoy the spa-like locker rooms with sparkling clean private showers and other amenities. For more details, go online at memorialhealthcare.org or on Facebook at Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center.
This is Jim Woodworth, proud Corunna Cavalier and owner of Success Group Mortgage. We have invested a significant amount of time and money into our Corunna community. So I'm here to ask you a favor. If you're in the market to purchase or refinance your home, call Success Group Mortgage. It allows us to continue our mission to support the students of Corunna Public Schools. Call Success Group Mortgage today, 989-720-4380.
Well, we've been wanting to book our next guest for quite a while now, and the timing is perfect with the release of his new book coming out in October, The Gales of November, The Untold Story of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Welcome.
There it is right there.
There it is. I love it. Welcome to the podcast, John U. Bacon and Michigan guy. First off, John, thanks for the time. And I'll start off with a question to get us going. What made you want to write about this topic?
It's been on my mind for years. I mean, I was an 11-year-old kid when it happened. I do remember it back in 75. I was in 6th grade, I must have been. So it's been on my mind for a while. If you grew up in Michigan, as Ted, you probably know that the Great Lakes are everywhere around you. You're in most of them at some point or other in the summertime. So seeing the big ships out there always fascinated me. And I realized going through my notes, my old files, I first pitched it to a previous agent like 20, 25 years ago incredibly. But
Wow.
timing's got to be right, and right agent, right publisher, all that good stuff. But this time the stars align, and what I really wanted to find out, of course, what happened, and we've got some chapters on that in there, and we certainly advance some theories and I think weaken others. We don't try to solve it per se, but it's all part of it. But really, the untold story is how big the Great Lakes are, how dangerous they are, how important shipping is, what these guys' lives are like, because they provide all our stuff. We don't know anything about them. And of course, these 29 men in particular. I wanted to humanize them, take them from being a number to being people you know and care about before that last day.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Michigan also. I know we were talking off air. I'm down in North Carolina now, but I did grow up in Michigan, know plenty about the Great Lakes, been up to Lake Superior a number of times. I haven't been to, the site, I guess, where Edmund Fitzgerald
Whitefish Point.
Right. Unless I was very young. Maybe my parents would correct me on that. Maybe I was very, very young when we were up there, but I don't have memory of it. But I've lived outside of the state now for quite some time. And I've told so many people that have never been to the Great Lakes, when I rave about the Great Lakes, they're like, oh, great. It's just a lake, right? And I'm like, you don't understand. There's shipwrecks. I mean, there are shipwrecks on the Great Lakes. I just rave about it. So I'll be very curious to read this book, because we all know about the song and we know about the story and stuff like that. But I wanted to ask you University of Michigan alum, we'll get to maybe some of the Michigan books that you've written in a little bit. You've plugged into the program. I don't know how you would characterize your relationship with Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, you have interviewed him and you followed his teams along quite a while. He has talked before. My question was going to be, he has talked that Edmund Fitzgerald is his favorite song, and he would listen to it before games or before, that's like his hype song. Did you ever ask him about it? Did you ever ask Jim Harbaugh about his feelings on this book, or did he ever give you some thoughts on it?
Right. Take a whole team up there in many buses, and trust me, Whitefish Point is not on the way to anywhere. So that shows his commitment. His players were often quite into it. I recall Jake Moody wearing the T-shirt, and a few other guys did as well. So I've not talked to Jim about this, but I will send him a book very soon, which I believe he'll appreciate. So. Although he's pretty busy during the season, I think. So he might not get a chance to read this until after the playoffs, but I'm sure he'll take an interest.
Yeah. As we go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, listeners and watchers, if you're watching on YouTube, followers of 3 Point Podcast, yes, usually we have three of us. The young man, Jared, he's not able to be here, but he did send us a list of some questions that he would have wanted to ask you if he was here. And while we're on the topic of the book, I won't try to replicate how he talks and how he delivers the question, because he has a specific style. But this was one of his questions. How did you get into the right frame of mind to write the book? Because I can imagine it's a rainy day. You grab your coffee, put the Eureka, the Edmund Fitzgerald on repeat. Is that pretty close to the truth, or how did you get in the right mindset to write the book?
Actually, it's pretty close to the truth. I've got one of those Sonos accounts, and all the usual Pandora and so on. I've got a Gordon Lightfoot station, so I would often put that one on, or once in a while a CCR station or a Bob Seger station, but trying to play the music of the era. And it wasn't just, of course, that song that comes up, which is, I've got 2 chapters in the song in the book, how it was created, which is very unlikely, and how it became a hit, which is even less likely. I never interviewed Gordon Lightfoot, but I did interview his drummer, Barry Keane, who's still around, and his bass player, Rick Haynes, also still around. And they were very helpful to me. So some pretty amazing stories there. But also, Brandy, You're a Fine Girl. I bought the rights for this book as well, because that was the anthem for these guys at their bars all across the Great Lakes. It's about a sailor at sea. And for these guys, it's kind of their theme song. But there are Otis Redding sitting on the dock of the bay. There are 4 or 5 nautically themed songs that, including Grand, by the way, they've got one. That these guys played at jukeboxes all across the Great Lakes. So once a week, they're off the boat in Toledo or perhaps Silver Bay, Minnesota, one of the 2 ends, drinking beer and playing their songs. And they'd never agree on the songs. The young guys wanted the rock and roll. The old guys wanted the country. But they all loved Brandy, You're a Fine Girl. So that's the one song that would bring them all together, singing in unison.
That makes sense.
In that case. So that's how I got in the mood for this thing. I did that quite often.
Wow. Well, I graduated high school in 1974, so I remember very vividly too when the wreck happened. Now it's 50 years. This is the anniversary, I guess you would call it that, coming up in November.
Yes.
You were able to touch bases with over 100 interviews with families, friends, former crewmates, as a matter of fact. Talk about that just a little bit.
Well, with a football book or a book like this, when you're researching it, you have to get lucky. You basically read a 50-page proposal. You send it to your agent in New York. They send it around to the publishers. They bid on that and they interview you in the process. And you're basically like a geologist promising shale oil. I swear to God, there's oil down there. You give them reason why you think that. And then when you get the contract, you hope like hell there's oil down there. So in this case, it just kept on gushing up as far as my sources. I got to 6 men who had served in some capacity on the Edmund Fitzgerald from 1963 to 1975. And they knew the ship, they knew the crew, they knew the habits, they knew the food, they knew everything about it. I got to one guy, he might be the last guy left, Rick Barthuli, an engineer on the Arthur Anderson. That was the ship that was chasing the Fitzgerald all night long, the last communication. He might be the last guy left from 1975, and he was brilliant. He was just fantastic. He could tell me exactly what it was like that night at various points. It's as close as we can get, of course, because there are no survivors from the Fitzgerald. I also got to 9 of the families, of the 29 families. And over time, over a 3-year period, developed their trust. And they were just fantastic. They were open. They were honest. And from them, I learned really these guys were unsung heroes before the ship even went down. There were 300 ships at the time plying the Great Lakes. And the cement in your basement, the steel in your car, and the food on your table, trust me, it all comes from these ships, even in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Where the breadbasket up here, of course, is where the minerals are. Iron, copper, limestone, you name it. If you're going to make steel, it's going to come from up here, chances are.
Right.
And everyone needs steel, naturally, and they need food, too. General Mills, Kellogg's, they're all in the Great Lakes. It's not an accident. So these guys deliver all these things, and through the family members, I got to feel what it was like to be in these families. It was a rough life. These guys are on board 9 months out of the year. And back then, there were no vacations. So Dad's home for basically January, February, March, and he's off again. So one of the guys told me, he's on another ship. He said, I've got 3 kids. I didn't teach any of them how to ride a bike. And as a father myself, that can break your heart. So sacrifices were made before anything went wrong.
No, it's a pretty incredible story. And I mean, just hearing you talk about it makes me really want to pick it up. I've got a stack of books, that I get interest in, and then you get busy with life and you get halfway through and then you don't revisit it. So
Matt, that is loser talk right there. I will not hear that. I will not have that again.
I know. Trust me.
Look it up and read the book. If you get on goodreads.com, people got the advanced copy are already reviewing it, about 30 reviews, and we're getting like a 4.8. And these are mostly women. About 2-to-1 ratio women. And so it's kind of book club fodder. And the phrase so far is can't put it down. No one's giving you lower than a 4 out of 5. So, and who knows if that's going to hold up, but this should be a page turner. That's the good news.
Good deal. And I mean, I have interest. It's the same with your books on Michigan football. Obviously, I'm a Michigan football fan. So those are the ones that I don't put down until I finish. So I have an interest in the Great Lakes and the Edmund Fitzgerald. So I agree. I just thought of this, and I have another question. Do your books, are they audiobooks? And then maybe what are your thoughts on audiobooks? You're probably a traditionalist. You want people to buy the physical copy, not on the Kindle, not, an audiobook, or is that fine with you as long as they're picking up or listening to your books?
Well, actually the latter is true. Old school in many ways, of course, that's been established. But as far as if you want the book, the ebook, you want audiobooks and so on, or you want the hardcover, it's all the same to me. You can buy them on Amazon, your local bookstore, Barnes and Noble, Books and Books, whatever you got. Yeah. It all works. Trust me. It's all the same to the author.
Now, do you read it, or do you have somebody else narrate the book?
One book I did read was Let Them Lead, Unexpected Lessons in Leadership from America's Worst High School Hockey Team.
Right.
And that one's on its 5th printing now after 4 years. That's very positive. It's the only one that I read myself.
Okay.
Because those are my guys. And if you know the story at all, Coach Lappridge was my assistant coach, and I didn't want anyone else reading about my guys, basically. Right. And I got choked up several times in that book, as readers will know, audio readers, I guess. Right. But the other ones almost always go to Johnny Heller. Johnny Heller is one of the best readers in the business. top 5 or 10 easily. He's done
Wow.
500 or 600 books,
Oh, wow.
including like 6 or 7 of mine, and we become friends in the process. He just tweeted about this. If you follow Johnny Heller, saying it's one of the best books he's read, and he got choked up 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
So he does a great job. He's an actor also. These guys tend to be.
Well, you talk about being choked up from that book. What were your emotional thoughts when you finally put this one to rest and turned it into the publisher? Did you have some varied emotions?
I got choked up many times during the interviews and during the writing process.
Mm-hmm.
And the end is, it's you don't know how it ends. Trust me, we know how the ship goes down.
Right.
But the book does not end there.
Ah.
So no, a few times when you hear the stories behind it, you're not going to believe them. Like I said, there's more oil down there than I thought. The story of Captain McSorley, that was going to be his last trip, it turns out. Scheduled last trip for his career. He was 63. He decided to go. They were debating in January. He and his crew, by the way, were together for several ships. They followed him from ship to ship. He had tremendous loyalty. He was considered the best captain of the Great Lakes by far, in terms of steering, in terms of delivery, in terms of crew recruiting and management. They loved that guy. And 4 or 5 of his colleagues were going to retire after that trip also. And he tacked on one more trip.
Wow.
Why? Because he gets a bonus for once you're past your quota, and he was. You get a bonus. And his wife needed advanced medical care. I think she had cancer, is the most common theory. And this trip was going to pay for her care. So
wow.
you learn that, like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And then another guy, Bruce Hudson, a 22-year-old guy. He's a Ohio State student in forestry, but dropped out to become a sailor for a little while. It paid very well for a guy that age. He was smart about his money. He gets his girlfriend pregnant in Toledo, and he finds out about it 2 months before his last trip. A payphone. He didn't get a chance to see her again when he's traveling. And he said, "Don't worry, we're going to move in together and raise the kid ourselves." So he didn't, going to do the right thing. But he's going to go on one last cross-country trip in his Dodge Challenger, a souped-up burgundy car with a sticker of Columbia Transportation that managed the Fitzgerald in the window. He's very proud of being on the Fitz. And his girlfriend said, "You know what? I'm not due till June. Go ahead." So that was going to be his last hurrah with one of his fellow deckhands. And of course, he's an only child also. And he goes down with the ship. And his mom, Ruth Hudson, thinks, "I've lost the one person I love the most." Does not know that she's got a grandchild coming in 6 months. And then that grandchild, by the way, she grows up, Heather. She has 4 children. The oldest is Austin, who looks just like her would-be grandfather, of course, Bruce Hudson. So Ruth gets a great grandson. It looks just like her son.
Yeah.
So all these stories fold in. Just amazing, amazing stories.
Wow.
It really is. And like you said, a lot of people know about it. Obviously, the song is part of the reason that a lot of people know about it. But bringing more of it to light, kind of like you said, to humanize the whole story is something that I'm almost surprised that it hasn't already been done until now, to the level that I'm sure there's books and there's other stuff about it, but to the level of what you're doing, I'm surprised there's not already something like that. So I'll be very curious to get it.
There's a bookshelf with 4 shelves full of books in the Fitzgerald, of various aspects, including 30 that are about the Fitz itself, but none of them from a New York publisher.
Right.
It was so people have been writing books, but did not take the approach that I wanted to take.
Right.
Almost all of them are what happened, trying to push this theory or that theory. None of them, the people I mentioned, I talked to, the 6 crew members and the 9 families, had never once talked to an author. So all these stories are new. That is the untold part. And part of the untold part too is just how big and scary these Great Lakes really are.
Oh, right.
If you talk to the seasoned sailors, and I did, the old colleagues of these Fitzgerald sailors, friends of theirs. One guy, John Hayes, did 23 years in the Great Lakes and 12 on the ocean. He said the Great Lakes are far more dangerous than the ocean, and anyone's done close will tell you it's not even close, which I had no idea about. One reason why the salt water pushes the waves down on the ocean,
Right.
it smooths them out, and it spreads them out also. So instead of on the Great Lakes, you got pointy mountain ranges basically, and they're twice as close. So on the oceans, they're big roller coaster, but they're relatively smooth, less dangerous than what you get in the Great Lakes. In the Great Lakes, you can get your bow of a 700-foot ship. You can get your bow in one 30-foot wave over here and your stern in another 30-foot wave with nothing holding it up, with 30 feet below it, except for 26,000 tons of iron ore. Ships have cracked and sunk because of that on the Great Lakes, and people have no idea. And how big they are, tell your pals in Charlotte, North Carolina, who, trust me, have no idea whatsoever how big these lakes are. If you're on the shore of any one of these lakes, you can't see across, not because of the haziness, because the earth curves and the shore is not visible. If you're in the middle of Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, or Lake Superior in the middle, you can't see either shore. That's how guys have gotten lost and around because of that. So it's crazy. When guys I know at Michigan Tech, professors there who are very smart, Guy Meadows and others, they had to go to D.C. To get funding for more ships, more federal funding. And the guy in D.C. says, well, don't forget, these lakes have got to be big enough for these ships to turn around. It's like, buddy, we're in Virginia right now. Lake Superior is as big as the state of Virginia.
Yes.
Don't worry. 350 miles is enough for these things to turn around.
Right.
Here's a stat for you that I did not know, despite being from Michigan. I wrote this book. The Great Lakes are as big, surface area, as Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and the state of New York. So all of New England and New York.
Right.
That's how big these things are, and no one has any idea.
Nope. Sometimes it's like, have you ever looked at a map? Did you, did you ever like really look at a map and see how big these things are? Yeah, I did the ride as a kid, the SS Badger from Ludington. My parents are retired up in Ludington now, but Ludington over to Wisconsin.
Matt Wiltsey is the captain of that ship.
Okay.
So I've talked to him, and I've been on the Badger myself.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, it's really cool. My parents do the dinner cruises and all this stuff now that they're up there. But the point I was going to say is, yeah, I remember I was young when we did it, but being at a point where I went out and you couldn't see anything but water around you. And as a kid, I don't know, I was maybe 10, 12, something like that, having that feeling of like, whoa, this is kind of weird. I don't see the beach anywhere. So yeah, that's an eerie feeling. And that was on just a fun cruise across the lake. So I can't imagine during a storm. So we're excited about this book. Obviously, This is super exciting. Before we don't want to hold you all night. So before we get you out of here, we got a couple more questions. We've mentioned Michigan football. I've read 3 and Out. I've read Overtime. I've read End Zone. The one I haven't read, Bo's Lasting Legacy or Lasting Lessons. Again, it's in the stack. It's in the stack that I'm going to get to. There it is. It's one of those in the stack of 5 or 6, and I'm going to add your latest one to the stack.
It's one of the few books. It's the only book that Warren Buffett himself has endorsed.
Nice.
That's
a great book about a great man. He did not even endorse his son's book, so that's pretty good company right there.
That's high praise.
I would say that's high praise right there. So yeah, we're obviously on the podcast. We're Michigan football fans, and you're an alum. I don't know if you want to call yourself a fan.
Can't be a fan.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
I wanted to ask about
Ryan McGee. Ryan McGee is a pro.
Oh yeah, I mean, McGee's right up there with the best of the sports writers. Big fan of his writing. I wanted to ask about the process of writing about Michigan football, and even all the way back to the Rich Rod days with the 3 and Out book. I mean, you must have to leave as a video editor. You leave a lot on the cutting room floor. How much do you have to leave out? Because when you're following around a Jim Harbaugh program, or when you're doing all these books, you could make it a 1,500-page book if you wanted, or what's the process? Kind of like Jared's question earlier, like what kind of mindset did you get in? What's the process of following around Michigan football and then just trying to get it down to one little book?
Well,
it's crazy.
The cutting room floor, by the way, is about knee deep, but by the time I'm done. This book on the Fitzgerald is not that thick, of course. It's not that big, not that thick, but I cut it in half. It's about 388 pages right now, and it would have been 700. Bo's Lasting Lessons about the same. Most of the football books I cut in half as well. It's brutal. It's my process. It's not recommended. There's got to be a more efficient way to write books than the way I do it.
Right.
But I got to say also, if a book's any good, and Hemingway said this, if all your cutting is crap, you still have crap inside your book.
Yeah.
By the end, the cuts have got to be painful. It's kind of like, tryouts for your team. If all you're cutting is guys who can't play, well, guys who can't play are still on your team. Then
Right.
you're cutting very good players to have a great team, and that's painful. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Dorothy Parker called it killing off your little darlings. Things that I love, you got to bite it. I had 5 great pages in the Mackinac Bridge, and it got cut. So, and I love the Mac Bridge. But anyway,
Yep.
So in the process also, in the football books, usually what those amount to is I'm embedded I got some ideas. I'm embedded for a season. I interview people during the season. I'm at the games, of course, hopefully on the sidelines if possible. Taking all the notes, and even in the games, because it's going to come out a year later. You already know who won or lost.
Yeah.
So I got to say something in those games that you could not have gotten from the TV. So what did I get from the sidelines, the locker room, the post-game talk, something. But also I need a theme, basically. And 3 and out, of course, is Rich Rodriguez versus some of the old guard, basically. 4th and long is about Penn State, mainly. The future of college football. That was Bill O'Brien and his program in 2012. End zone was the end of the Dave Brandon era at Michigan and the start of the Harbaugh era, which is very unlikely, frankly.
Right.
You get behind the scenes there.
That was a great one.
The book Overtime, I wanted to find out what more did I have to say about this? How does the whole machine work? In other words, admissions, the academic guys, the nutrition people, the power and strength guys. How does the whole thing come together? Basically, recruiting, all that business. So I want to show how the whole machine works, basically.
Yeah.
So and then January comes, season's over. You got to write like a banshee for 4 months, 5 months.
Right.
And you got out your axe and hack at it. And luckily, I've always had very good friends to read my drafts and to tell me where I'm right, where I'm wrong, where I need to cut back, where do I need to make sure I don't cut, and so on. So it's a brutal process, but you got to look at the end of it.
You know, I have a Michigan question, but before I get to that, I was thinking about you being an author, a big-time award-winning author. What's your process, John? I mean, do you hunker down in the basement, your man cave, and, you know, when you have a specific topic you're going to write about and just bang away at it for 3-4 hours? How does it work?
Try 12, 16 hours.
Okay.
Once that season ends and the interviews are basically done, I'll have to circle back to interview more people at some point or other, this book concluded.
Right.
You start writing when you know like half your story, and then you fill in the blanks as you go. But when I'm in the writer's cave, truly, I'm either here at home, but what I often do these days, we got a cottage up north, and I'll go up there for 4 or 5 days just to write nonstop. I will not leave the cottage for 3 or 4 days. If you've seen The Shining, you get the idea, basically. So hopefully with better results. But I tell my students at Northwestern when I taught grad students in journalism, this is writing and everything else isn't. So when you wake up, your keys are on the keyboard and you go all day long, you take a break, get some food, maybe a nap, and you just keep on. I do it like in 3 shifts.
Okay.
So each about 6 hours. So I write until about a 2-hour lunch, take a nap. I write again until dinner, again, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So it's brutal, but you get it done.
You got it done,
and I
for
mean,
sure.
what happens also, my books always take at least 10 drafts. This last one took 30, and that's pretty crazy.
Well, we're really looking forward to the book for sure. My only question I got on Michigan is, you know, you wrote the book 3 and Out. Are there any similarities that you see with Sharon following Harbaugh? You know, you had Lloyd Carr followed by Rich Rod. We know Rich Rod was not in the program, so that's one different thing for Moore. But is there any similarity at all there that you see?
Well, not yet. I'll say that. A few gigantic differences. One, Rich Rodriguez was a very established coach.
Right.
When he played Michigan's coach, people forget this. The year before, he had turned down Alabama.
Right.
Second choice was a guy named Nick Saban. You might have heard of him.
Yeah, we heard of him.
So that worked out pretty well for Alabama, I guess. But I think Rich would have worked out at Alabama, to be honest. The cultural shift at Michigan was a hard one on both sides. Basically, he was not well known, and both sides should have done more to bridge that thing early on.
Right.
Whereas in Sharon Moore's case, Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh did not agree on a lot of things near the end. They both agreed that Sharon was the guy without question. Right.
Yeah.
So he comes in with the full support of the program. Now NIL, as we see with Bryce Underwood, and he's not got a lot of experience, but obviously did very well filling in for Harbaugh the previous year. And you got to say last year for a team that didn't have a ton of talent and certainly very little on offense, 8-5, man, of those 8 wins, like 5 are rivalry games.
Right.
Right.
So, the most bang for the buck possible.
Yep.
I think last week versus Oklahoma, you saw where they need more work. O-line in particular, probably play calling. They're going to have to let Bryce Underwood loose sooner or later.
Yeah.
You can't double wrap the guy. And if you get a $12 million quarterback and not much backing him up, that might be a little scary. I get that.
Right.
But what are your alternatives? Your alternatives are losing.
Yep.
You got to unleash them. And they're going to have to in the games ahead, I'm sure.
Yep. I want to ask you again, maybe 1 or 2 more for you.
Sure, don't worry about it.
Kind of along the lines you mentioned NIL. We all know about Bryce Underwood, but the game has changed. And I'm just curious your thoughts. You've been covering the game. You were a coach. You play. You were involved in hockey, so you know athletics. You know academics as well, but athletics. You know that world. How do you think NIL is kind of dramatically? Obviously, it has changed the game, but I mean, maybe in a good way. Maybe you think in a good way, or in a bad way. How do you think overall it is changing? Is student athlete? Can we just throw that out the door now, or like is it in 5 years? Is it going to change? Like is it an ever evolving thing, or what are your thoughts on the whole transfer portal, NIL, the whole process of all that?
Sure. Well, we'll back it up first to say that my theory in 4th and long, my solution for solving the problem, that the whole system cannot be defended, in my opinion. You can't have a system where a coach can make $5 or $10 million, and the starting quarterback who has created a lot of that success can't sign his name for $5. It's right. That is clearly insane.
Crazy. Yeah.
But my solution was the very simple solution that baseball and hockey have had for a century: viable minor leagues. If you have viable minor leagues and you're a high school senior, you got very good choices. I can go play college hockey or baseball and get a scholarship. And if that's worth it to me, then I'll go do that. If it's not worth it to me, I'll take the bonus and the money and I'll go play minor leagues and you're all set. Yep. So the problem with football and basketball, okay, now you're paying the players, but there's still only one way to the NBA and one way to the NHL, more or less, or NFL, sorry, more or less. So it's still a screwed up system, in my opinion. You have more power, you still don't have very many choices. So that part is screwed up to me. And this is going to be a weird mix. I mean, I know it's always mixed over the years. Plenty of players have gotten paid. We know that.
Right.
Yeah.
But now what? I mean, I've taught at Michigan for 15 years. I don't teach these days. But if I had Bryce Underwood in my class, he seems like a very good guy and a decent student, everything I've heard. But let's say I've got a $12 million quarterback and I'm a $10,000. They paid me chump change at Michigan all those years,
right?
To teach these guys. And I flunked 2 starting Michigan football players, 5 stars, guys you've heard of. One guy got his act together and graduated on time. We're still in touch. One guy didn't, transferred around and ended up washing out. I got 0 pushback from the University of Michigan on that. Not from the academic guys, not from the coaches, not from anybody. All right, let's go forward. And so far, Michigan is still working from what I've seen. You got a $12 million quarterback. I'm about to flunk him. I'm not going to hear from the guy who wrote that check. And I'm making $10,000. That's ripe for trouble, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's one problem we're going to have going forward. Second of all, you have the problem Michigan's got right now. $12 million quarterback. What if he has a knee injury? I mean, will the coaches get ripped on by the guy who wrote the check, Larry Ellison and his wife in this case, for using him inappropriately or whatever?
Right.
Playing in the 4th quarter when you're up by 20. You have all kinds of strings attached now, and it's going to make this very complicated. So I was going to change everything, Matt, in every way possible, and it's only just started. Yeah. Anyone tells you what the future is going to be is lying, because no one knew what was going to happen this time. And we're all told it's going to be simple in marketplace and so on. The problem with the marketplace argument is very simple. This is not a marketplace. These are irrational players, irrational characters, that is. The Alabama alums, the Michigan alums, the Ohio State alums, they're not rational about this.
Right.
They don't expect a return on their investment other than winning games.
Yep.
So whereas endorsements for pro athletes, McDonald's knows if Michael Jordan is in their movie or whatever else, we're going to get X back on cheeseburgers. In this case, that's not how it gets measured. So you couldn't have the old system. My system, of course, no one listened to. Is minor leagues. This system is going to be round peg and square hole. Trust me, going forward. Now, in some ways, it's still pretty cool. And it should be said that Fritz Chrysler, Michigan's old legendary AD and coach, he thought athletic scholarships in the late 50s were going to end college football as we know it. Well, it didn't.
Right.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Exactly.
Well, let's you've been so thoughtful for staying with us this long. We're going to get you out of here, but the book
My
is
pleasure.
The Gales of November, the untold story of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Tell our listeners the best spot, when it comes out, where to get it, that kind of stuff.
There
Sure.
it is.
There it
Get
is.
on johnnubacon.com, and it should be even wrapped on the edge. That's pretty cool.
Right.
Get on johnnubacon.com. We got everywhere you can possibly buy it. Again, just click. Your local store, Amazon, you name it, it's all there. You'll get it October 7th. If you pre-order now, we're already doing very well on pre-order sales. We got a book tour to, I think, 25 cities in, I think, 15 states, something like that. So
Wow.
we might be adding Charlotte and Raleigh, by the way. We're going to
Nice.
Atlanta, I know that. So, and of course, all across the Midwest and Great Lakes. So all that's happening. Check it out. And hope to see you guys on the road.
Well, we're
Yes, sir.
very looking forward to it. John, one last question. What's the U?
The U stands for my middle name. Hold
Okay. All right. Fair enough. John U. Bacon,
That's
thanks
simple.
for joining us.
It's too much fun dragging that one out.
Well, we appreciate it, John. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Jacobs Insurance Agency has served Shiawassee County and the surrounding areas since 1977. Just like 3 Point Podcasts, we've had 3 generations: Gary Jacobs Sr., Gary Jacobs II, Brian Jacobs, and myself, Noah Jacobs, serving our community with offices in Waterford and Owasso on M21, just west of Home Depot. Stop in or go online to jacobsinsurance.com to get a quote or get your questions answered by our team. Jacobs Insurance is a proud supporter of our local schools and the proud sponsor of the Prep Spotlight. Insure everything, local, independent, and trusted. It's our family working together to protect yours. That's the Jacobs way.
Are you ready to take your brand to the next level? Look no further. Introducing AZee Branding Solutions, where we help grow your brand from A to Z. At AZee, we're committed to helping businesses and organizations like yours reach new heights. Our full-service print and digital branding agency is your one-stop destination for all things branding. Need a stunning web or graphic design that captures your essence? We've got you covered. Want captivating social media content that engages your audience? Done. And that's not all. We're experts in video production and photography, ensuring your brand tells a compelling visual story. Plus, we specialize in screen printing and embroidery, turning your brand into wearable art that speaks volumes. Whether you're a startup or an established business, AZee is here to transform your brand dreams into reality. Ready to grow with us? Partner with AZee today and experience the difference. Visit our website at www.az.co or give us a call at 1-844-360-AZEE. AZee Branding Solutions, where your success begins.
All right, guys, we now want to welcome in Dan Hasty. You can follow him on X at @DanHasty. He's the voice of the Grand Rapids Rise, a professional volleyball team. Grand Rapids Gold, the NBA G League affiliate of the Denver Nuggets. He's also the voice of the University of Detroit Mercy. That one was pretty cool, wasn't it? I didn't know that when I saw that in your bio. But most notably right now, you're the voice of the Detroit Tigers single A affiliate, the West Michigan Whitecaps. Dan, I mean, you're a busy guy. You're on the road right now because the Whitecaps are heading into the postseason. So thank you for taking some time to talk to us.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having me on. I mean, this is just unlike anything that we've ever seen. And I know a lot of people have never seen. You know, there comes a point where you go from being just a good team and just a great team to kind of a jaw-dropping sort of finish. And, you know, and I know you're going to have some things to talk about, but like these guys were 92-39.
Think about that.
Like that is a 100. And I think I read somewhere it's like 118 win pace if they were a major league team. Like the last time a team had a winning percentage as high as West Michigan, it was in the major leagues. It was the Seattle Mariners back in 2001. You remember that team? Like Ken Griffey and like Mike Cameron showed up and like they all of a sudden like were unbeatable. Edgar Martinez, shout out to him. But you know, and then in the minor leagues, ironically, the last team to do this was us. Right? It was 1997. So it's just crazy to think that how rare it is, and then to think about how that rarity also intersects with our own team history. It's just so bizarre, and it's so fun.
Yeah, I mean that's the main reason we brought you on. I mean, we're sports guys. Like we've talked about a lot. Ted has done play-by-play for going on 40 years. So I mean, it's cool that to have another play-by-play person on. We appreciate the business, I guess, the art of calling play-by-play with sports. So that's part of the connection. But then I came across the story of the Whitecaps, and I've been following it for the last few weeks to see if they can break these records and get up to that win percentage that you were just talking about. Another stat that was pretty crazy that I saw that I had to double, triple, quadruple check because I was like, there's no way this is right, is the run differential. Plus 289 run differential for the Whitecaps this year is just absolutely bonkers. And I mean, if you look at their record, obviously the record, you're like, man, they must be doing pretty well in the run differential game. Plus 289 though is absolutely insane to be outscoring teams at that clip. So you kind of already talked about it a little bit. You alluded to it, but can you just give us a few thoughts on the whole following the team along, covering them? You're obviously connected, you're close, watching them every game. Can you just talk about I don't know, the feeling and reflecting back on the season of, everything that's been happening. And now you're in Lake County, Ohio, getting ready to call a playoff game.
Well, when you have a season that is that dominant, I think, look, to win a championship is great, but let's be honest. I mean, these are 3-game series, and anything can happen in a 3-game series. The rosters of minor league baseball teams are so variable. You don't know who you're going to have tomorrow, let alone a week from now. So to have gone through that type of fluctuation, and I think what makes this fascinating is that these guys had 3 of the most recognizable names, not just in Tiger circles, but in minor league baseball circles. If you knew and you followed minor league baseball, you already knew exactly who Kevin McGonigal was.
Right.
You already knew who Max Clark was. Heck, if you were any kid in the junior high to high school age range, you already knew who Max Clark was. And then just for fun, the guy who turned into Barry Bonds of the Arizona Fall League at 20 years old is also here. I mean, any one of those guys by themselves would have been must-see as it pertained to minor league baseball.
Right.
But to have all 3 made it this super unique position. So, of course, expectations are high. They run the table. Then they all get promoted at the same time.
Yep.
And now you're wondering, like, what is it going to look like in half number 2? How does this team respond? But they're so well trained. They're so unified as a group that I think because it was such a public promotion of those 3 big names, I think they thought that they were taking some arrows. And I think that really motivated them.
Right.
Well, it's been a fantastic story, Dan, and it's just amazing what they've done. You're in the Grand Rapids area, obviously calling their games. How's the fan support been all summer long?
I mean, just tremendous. And what's fun is that this year, just getting ready to go to the postseason, and the last time these guys were in the playoffs, you got to go back to pre-pandemic. 2018 was the last time that these guys were in a postseason. And that year was pretty intense because they actually made it in as the wild card on the last day of the season. So that was pretty unique. That was pretty special. They actually made it in that year with an under 500 record. But after the pandemic, Major League Baseball decided to take away the wild card team in the first and second half. So we would have gotten in a number of times, and we had gotten in a number of times in previous years as a wild card. Many times it had led to a championship for West Michigan. Their last one included 2015. But now you have to win your division.
Right.
And in looking back over the last 3 seasons, any guesses where West Michigan may have finished the season in the standings in the second half? I mean, they would have been a wild card team each of the last 3 years. But because that's no longer available to them, they no longer get the chance to go to the postseason. So they had to win. And I guess this year they sort of made up for lost time.
No, there's so many cool stories around this team. I mean, the little bit of a long layoff, but between their last playoff appearance and this year, and then all the statistics, it's just a really cool story. I told you through our messages that I was on the west side of Michigan. I went to Grand Valley, and then I worked at Fox 17 for a few years. So I've been to a number of Whitecaps games. I remember I saw Maglio Ordonez do a rehab start there. Saw Kenny Rogers. It was a big deal. He did a rehab start in West Michigan. Obviously, there's a bunch of other guys. I saw Joel Zumaya play there, and there's a bunch of other cool names, and maybe Max Clark and Michiganders. Maybe those will be some names in 5, 6, 7 years. Kids are looking back and saying, "Hey, I watched those guys play with West Michigan." That'd be pretty cool. Can you talk though about how minor league baseball is just kind of different in that sense, because you don't have just like one roster all year. You might have some of the bigger guys coming down for rehab starts. You have the big names like who we just mentioned getting moved up throughout the year. The roster is fluctuating all the time. So how it is as a broadcaster to call those games, where the roster might change every series basically. And then also like just for following the team, how much of a struggle I guess it is to compete when your roster is changing, so often.
So I have a lot for you on these fronts. It's so funny you mentioned Joel Zumaya, because I was also that kid. When I grew up on the east side, I grew up in Sterling Heights, and my folks always used to go to the west side of the state to go on camping trips, and they would take my sister and I with them. And the only request I had was if we could go watch the West Michigan Whitecaps play. And a big reason for that was because they are a Tigers affiliate. And I remember wanting to go watch Joel Zumaya pitch. And, I figured it was probably unlikely. Of course, he didn't pitch the day that we got to go. But if you've ever been to that ballpark, for many, many years, it's not this way anymore. But there used to be a really long staircase that the players would walk down. I think you know what I'm talking about based on your reaction.
Yeah.
So what happens is when the players would leave the locker room, they have to go down this big long staircase, and there would be people waiting for autographs and things like that. So I remember distinctly not seeing him pitch, but getting a chance to talk to him after a ball game. And the two of us got a picture together.
Nice.
And then all those years later, when he comes back to West Michigan, before he comes back, my folks actually find the photo and they give it to me so I can show it to him. So, I mean, we're looking at, I think I was maybe all of 14, maybe 13, 14. He was all of 20. So, and now it just feels like nothing less than a lifetime ago. So anyways, I digress, but I was right there with you. As it pertains to their numbers statistically, one of the craziest things, and I think I've talked more to the statisticians at minor league baseball this year than I ever have in all my other years combined, because they're constantly setting new fascinating and interesting milestones, records that I just cannot find having happened before. Josue Briseño hit 3 home runs in a game in Dayton, but he also stole home plate. Like, who does that? So I had to go talk to them and be like, hey, has anybody ever done this? And they're like, that was literally their reaction. And these are the people that are supposed to keep the stats. So there was that. But one of the other things that they're currently working on for us is we led our league, the Midwest League, in hitting with the highest batting average, 264, in pitching with an ERA of 319, and fielding percentage, 978. Literally first in pitching, hitting, defense, everything.
Wow.
And we couldn't find any other team that had done that. So it's fascinating. But to your point about the rehabs, look, I think 10 years ago, you would start the season with a team and you would take that team all the way to the finish line. And it was much more commonplace for players to spend an entire year at one particular stop. And I think the organization was different back then. You know, if you'd have told me that Dave Dombrowski went to his scouts and said, hey, go draft me some college kids that can dominate the low A level so I can trade them.
Right.
I mean, I don't think anybody would be surprised because that's how he operated as a general manager. So going from that to where they are now it's so much more fluid. Now the team that we end the season with, we basically just bring back for the next year, as evidenced by Clark McGonigal coming back to start 2025 with us after finishing 2024. So, you know, but as it pertains to rehabs, we've had our fair share of them this year. Ironically, two of our more notable rehabs are two pitchers who we have yet to see throw a pitch for the Detroit Tigers this year. One who probably will, and one who I don't believe is going to. Alex Cobb has pitched more innings for the West Michigan Whitecaps than I think he ever might for the Detroit Tigers. Mm-hmm. And Paul Sewald is currently on rehab assignment with us. And he's probably much more well-known to other fan bases, just not to this one. Right. But, you know, we certainly do get a chance to, you know, just be able to appreciate seeing what major league talent looks like now, so more than in past years.
Right.
You know, I got a two-part question for you, Dan. Number one, I always love talking to successful broadcasters and see how they've done it. And my word is hustle. And I mean hustle in a positive way. From what Matt laid out on what you got going on and all your play-by-play duties, tell us a little bit about, as a kid in Sterling Heights, you know, your dream obviously must have been to be a broadcaster. And how did you make it happen?
It's so funny. When I talk to young broadcasters, I use that same word. I say it really comes down to how hard are you willing to hustle? Mm-hmm. Because not every broadcaster is going to get picked up by ESPN or by CBS Sports or Fox. And it becomes even more essential to be able to put the work in. But just as important as doing the work. And I think continued education is so ridiculously important. I mean, I've been at this since college, and I graduated in 2008. And during that time, I've had multiple broadcast coaches. I had a voice coach that actually helped me tremendously. She actually helped me discover that I had a deviated septum. And I underwent a procedure in order to rectify that. And when I listen back, and I know we're kind of getting in the weeds here, but it's all right. When I listen back to the stuff that I had on tape before that and now after that, I mean, I sounded like my mother those first 3 years. So now it's just night and day different. But I think continued education is important. I think also it is true when they say it's just as much who you know as what you know. This business is full of two archetypes: the really talented person or the really good person. Mm-hmm. And you have to do your very best to try to fit into both of those subgroups, because usually if you're only in one camp or the other, you get weeded out.
Right.
So you have to be good, and you also have to be a good person. So being able to be in Grand Rapids, I mean, it's a great city. There's a lot of people that feel really good about being out there. It's a major league market. I mean, it is, as it's bigger than some of the other teams in, whether it be the NBA or the NFL. I mean, we're bigger than a lot of those markets, and there's a lot of things to do, and it's a great town. So we love Grand Rapids, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
My follow-up question is, I know you know him, Jesse Goldberg Strassler. He was a former guest on the program, and you know, we had him on right after his debut at Fenway Park. And I know you've done a Tiger game, or more than one, maybe. I don't know. I know I heard the game you did at one of them anyway. What was it like being in the show?
Well, so this happened about 3 weeks ago. There was another game back in 2021, but that was done. And I've done a number of spring training games before, but to do a regular season game was different. Was actually more different than any other broadcast I had ever done to that point. Because I had about 4 hours of notice, and 3 of those were spent in a car trying to frantically get to Comerica. But in that particular case, Tigers were in Oakland. They were playing the Athletics. And this was post-COVID. We were just coming out of COVID, so broadcasts weren't traveling yet. So that day, it was, hey, you get to make your big league debut. Also, we only have a monitor that you can watch off of, and it has no information of any kind.
Oh my.
So forget the score. I didn't even know what the count was. I had to keep it, and I don't have a spot for that on my scorebook. So I literally, like, there was no information of any kind. So it was all from memory for like 3 hours, and it was hard. But we got through it, and I think given the situation, I was really happy with it. But clearly, the Tigers thought it was good too, because a handful of years later, a situation came up, and I got a phone call when I was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was sitting in the lobby getting some work done, and they sent a text, and they just said, like, "Hey, where are you right now?" And I was like, oh, I know what that means. Right. So I basically was just like, yeah, I'm here, but I have my car. I typically tend to drive to the somewhat closer spots in the Midwest League, not to this one. Like, we're in East Lake, Ohio right now. It's like a 5-hour drive. No, thank you. Especially if it's a day trip like that. So all of that being said, it became like a scene out of The Amazing Race to get from Fort Wayne, Indiana to Metro Airport in Detroit to get on a flight that would get me down in Minnesota roughly 1 hour before first pitch. And yes, of course, if you're wondering, there were delays with the flight. And lucky for me, I had the greatest Somalian Uber driver known to mankind, who weaved his way in and out of traffic just to get me where I needed to go with literal minutes to spare. Like, I was actually talking to the board op saying, hey, can you guys play some pre-recorded stuff? Maybe cover for a few extra minutes. Wow. And so we got in with, I think it was like 7:02. I was walking in for the first time during the national anthem.
Oh man.
And thankfully I'd already had my scorebook filled out. I did that on the plane. And I sat down, and thankfully there was actually a little bit of a rain delay. So right as the anthem ended, it started raining, and that gave us a little bit of time to kind of collect ourselves. And I didn't think we were playing, because the whole night the weather forecast was just trash. It was just awful. So I thought I wasn't going to go, and I was kind of wondering in the back of my head, like, is all this happening today for us not to play baseball?
Right.
Well, it'd be a good story. So, at that point, you're just like, this is what we live for. So let's just do it and see what happens. And about a half hour later, Colt Keith was digging into the left-handed batter's box, and away we went. And then after the game ended, I got back to the hotel and then remembered that I had so little time to get to the ballpark that I never grabbed my suitcase at Magnolia. It was just probably spinning for hours. And so finally I had to call another Uber driver, go back to the airport, go grab my bag, and then get back. Thankfully, someone had put it aside. But I mean, those are the days that, and I think you understand this better than most, these are the days that we live for.
Right.
Put us in a spot where you need us. You're counting on us, and let us come through in that spot. And there's just nothing like it.
And honestly, you probably called one of the best games of your career, because the energy was there, and you sometimes, I mean, we're all like, we prepare in this business. You have to be prepared. Ted sends us pictures sometimes of his sheets and his notes and everything. And so never
be too prepared, right? You might not use it all, but
that's right. Yeah, it's a good gold standard for the broadcast. And if you can find a way, I mean, not every night are you going to get the kind of time that you would like. I mean, especially in baseball, because I think you just absorb a lot of baseball through being there every single day, seeing the team, knowing the guys, knowing the tendencies, knowing the coaching staff. But the time you do have, you're probably spending it preparing on the other team. Right. So, you're getting to know those guys. So that's the best thing you can possibly do.
Yeah, it's the magic of television or radio in the sense that, I mean, the number of games that I've done where we're still going through transmission or cameras aren't up because satellites are down or there's some sort of technical issue, literal minutes before kickoff or minutes before tip off. And then boom, everything comes up and we're on the air and we're off and running and people at home are happy. And it's just like, if people at home knew what just went in to getting this game on TV, or, we're talking about radio, sometimes it's funny to think about that stuff. But one quick question and then a follow-up. Have you ever done high school?
I am currently doing high school.
Okay.
I actually do. So during the pandemic, when we were coming out of COVID, there was a local high school that was looking for a way to broadcast their games because parents couldn't see them. They weren't allowed in the stadium. So they set up a live stream network. And, going back to the whole, it's just as much who you know as what you know. Well, the athletic director at that school used to be my on-air broadcast partner back in the day. I mean, he was doing color commentary with me in the Saginaw Valley League back when I was doing high school football in Midland, Michigan. So he remembered me, and I had actually seen a couple of his games as a reporter over the past couple of years before that. So when that opportunity came up, he said, "Hey, here's what our situation is. Here's what I'd like to do. Can you help us?" And yeah, of course. So I grabbed my number 2 in the baseball broadcast booth because I knew he had played 4 years of high school at West Catholic and played football there. And I said, "All right, you're coming with." So the baseball booth is the football booth throughout the course of the fall. And it allows us to get a chance to stay connected. And it's just the best. We've been doing it ever since.
That's awesome.
So that was going to be my follow-up. Ted, we mentioned, has been doing play-by-play for a long time and has done other sports, but football has been the main one. And he called my games in football. The third guy, that you're not getting to talk to tonight is actually Ted's nephew. He played football also. Ted called his games. So, I mean, we have a very big appreciation for the high school radio, especially on local radio play-by-play, and what it brings to the community, what it brings to the people who still want to listen, and just everything that goes into that. And I'm just curious your thoughts on that. Obviously, the world has changed with, you mentioned streaming with stuff like NFHS, you can stream games now. I'm down in North Carolina. I could watch my high school's games up in Michigan if I wanted to. Everything has changed so much. But can you just talk about maybe, it sounds like you have an appreciation for it too, the value of still calling those local high school games for the people at home that want to listen but can't get out to the stadium.
So when I think about high school sports and what they mean to people, I've been fortunate enough now to do high school sports in one capacity or another for probably about 10 years, give or take a few. And I always see just an otherworldly amount of the community that comes out for it. So I do Caledonia High School, and the live stream network is literally called the Cal Zone. Great name. And so
that's awesome.
Being able to be a part of that. So once a year, they do something called Calapalooza, and it's where they turn their parking lot essentially into an amusement park. And they get like 20,000 people there. I mean, the Whitecaps are killing it on the attendance front, and they're averaging about 6,000 a night.
Mm-hmm.
So to see the community come out with those kinds of numbers for one football game, just tells you everything you need to know. And, we're in this age now where, let's face it, college athletics, depending on your perspective, you can make an argument, has become compromised. And it doesn't have that same feel, that same purity that I think that the three of us the four of us, if our third was here, would say that we all began with.
Yeah.
And now I think that is reserved more at the high school level. So we still get it. Now you just get it at a different place. So, you see it there, you can appreciate it there. And again, it just blows me away every time I look around and I see 10,000 people there on a Friday night or 20,000 on a Calapalooza night. It's special.
Dan, I got one final question for you before we let you get out of here. What's the most unforgettable game you've called for the Whitecaps?
Wow.
Any no-hitters, anything along those lines?
Well, I think the one that automatically first comes to mind, I was fortunate. I had really good timing, and I got to West Michigan in time for their last Midwest League championship. Their last title was my first year. So the first year I was there was 2015, and that was a team that ended up, I think, graduating somewhere between 10 and 15 players to Major League Baseball. Handful of them are ones that you would know off the top of your head. Kristen Stewart was on that team. Spencer Turnbull was on that squad. Right. Joe Jimenez got the final out of like every playoff game. You kind of figure out who the manager likes when the postseason comes around. And that's one thing I'm looking forward to seeing here this week. So that year was fascinating because they went down 2-1 in a best-of-5 series on a heartbreaker on the road. And the way that travel and logistics play themselves out is, how can we make as few bus trips as possible, they say. So, like, for example, we have home field advantage in this series that we're about to play, but we're on the road for game 1. So we can have games 2 and 3 back at our place. That's just how it tends to roll. So in that particular instance, when it was a 5-game series, we were down 2-1. And then I think all the players thought that they had no shot, that they were done. And I hope I'm not telling any tales out of school at this point, but let's just say they went out that night and they had a blast. And the next day, let's just say that the guys were dragging a little bit and somehow went out and won. And next thing you know, it's a 2-2 series tie. They're still on the road. They still have to play another game on the road the next night. And the next night they go out and they win again. And that was the way that they won their first championship. And, know, when a front office doesn't have the ability to send all of its people to a place like Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and it's only a select handful of you that get the privilege of seeing that in person, that's really special. And I'll always remember that no matter what happens from here on.
Nice. No,
hey, Matt, before you let him go, I better get in a Jared question. He wanted to bring up one question just quickly on your thoughts on your Masters call.
Okay, so we tend to do just sort of oddball sort of bits throughout the broadcast. Like, for example, like we were just sitting in the booth the other night and we had this idea of, what if we put out our highlight package from a game, but did it messing with the pitch of our voices? So instead of just sounding like us, it would, here's a fly ball to deep left field. That one's back and that one is gone. So like that kind of stuff, or speed it up and take it higher. You get the idea.
Helium, yeah.
So we always are just thinking like, it's minor league baseball.
Have fun.
We do not want to take ourselves too seriously.
Right.
You know, if I'm asked to call a Major League Baseball game, and I've been fortunate enough, as we just talked about, I'm not going to call that game the same way that I'm going to call a minor league baseball game, as evidenced by the fact that on our field during the in-between inning promotions, there's silly stuff going on there. I mean, we are shooting fake arrows at balloons attached to an inflatable person inside a pizza costume. Like, we're not here to take ourselves that seriously. So, you know, we were sitting in the booth one night and it was Masters weekend. and they had just so happened to have had a postponement of their play that particular year. So they had to finish the Masters on a Monday. So on Sunday, we decided, you know what, let's go to YouTube, let's grab the Masters music, and let's just do a half inning. And then I was like, you know what, half inning might be too long. Let's do just an at bat. And the at bat could not have been more perfect. We basically just, went into the lexicon of all the golf we had watched and what would it look like, what would it feel like and sound like to make it sound like baseball. So we got very lucky. We had a great at bat for the situation that we were in. And next thing you know, my broadcast partner, who is much more well-versed in TikTok than I am, called me the next morning and he said, hey, so I put that video up of the Masters thing. And are you familiar with like the numbers and the view counts and things like that? And I was like, well, kind of. And he's just like, yeah, so it's been viewed a lot. Okay, so like a couple thousand already because you just put it up like an hour ago. He's like 50,000 views in the past hour.
Viral, baby.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, okay, there's an avalanche coming. And sure enough, and you know what? Like, it was everything that we want our broadcast booth to be known for.
Right.
We want it to love baseball, but we don't want it to revolve entirely around baseball because that's not what people are looking for. We are trying to present for the people who are watching. And if it's minor league baseball, you have to be there to entertain people. And you can do both. You can do both. And we will take a lot of pride in being able to do it simultaneously. And thankfully, I have a great partner in crime and I have a great boss that permits this sort of behavior. Right. And this absolute ridiculousness. So we're very, very lucky, and I'm just grateful to be in an environment that supports that.
Hey, if they didn't like what you were doing, if they didn't like you going viral for a Masters call, you would hear about it. You would know if they didn't like that, right?
Yes. You would know.
No, that's a really cool story, and we appreciate the time. And I'll be curious to see how the Caps do, and maybe some future endeavors that you get yourself into. Can you let our listeners know maybe where to follow you, maybe what to look for with the Whitecaps or anything like that? Just a last little tidbit.
Yeah, sure. So if the Whitecaps win their first round series, then and by the way, if you happen to be out in the Grand Rapids area over the course of the weekend that is the middle of September. So it would be September the 11th. It's a Thursday night. They're playing at home. And if necessary, they'll play on the 15th on the 12th, beg your pardon. And then if they end up in the championship, they'll be there on the 14th, which is next Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. So nice. Not to date ourselves too much here with being a podcast and being evergreen, but we are certainly hoping that we'll be playing in those baseball games. And if you happen to be out on the west side of the state, you would really enjoy watching what is put together in Comstock Park, Michigan. They have been doing it so well for such a long time. You obviously have seen it. Many of us have, but it just gets bigger and better every year. The stadium gets bigger and better. They're in the middle of a $50 million renovation. I mean, it's just so cool to watch this thing grow as we do. So I would say follow the Whitecaps because, they had this historic season and now they're trying to finish it off the way that you would hope that a team that went 92-39 would finish off something like that. So follow them. And if you like, I love to chronicle what's going on throughout the course of that pursuit. We'll start with that during this postseason run. You can find me at that Dan Hasty on X, at Dan Hasty on Instagram. And look, I mean, this is one of those times where we all just remember why we love doing this, why we love baseball. And lucky for us, it's not just one affiliate. I mean, you look at the Tigers system. We didn't get a chance to talk too much about the big league club, but there's an outside chance that the major league club makes the playoffs, as well as every single one of their full season minor league affiliates. Talk about another thing that we don't know the last time that happened. So Look,
if ever.
there's just it's just what do they say? What a time to be alive is
Yep.
what they say.
Well, enjoy the call, and like I said, we appreciate you taking some time to chat with us.
Happy to do it. You guys appreciate it.
Thanks,
Good deal.
Dan. All right, Matt, I just got to tell you, that was a fun one. We missed Jared, but man, we got some good insight from our special guests, John U. Bacon and Dan Hasty. I mean, that was fun, man, talking a little bit about the Edmund Fitzgerald and Michigan football, and then switching it over, talking baseball. The Tigers are
Right.
well in the playoff hunt, looking to close it out. The magic number is going to be starting to show up, but the Whitecaps, just an unbelievable season.
Yeah, some of the numbers that we were throwing around about the Whitecaps is crazy. I mean, yeah, it's single A baseball, but it's still it's still professional baseball. Those guys are getting paid to play. So yeah, really cool. And we've done so many of these interviews. We're building up quite the lineup of, I guess, guests, if you want to say our Rolodex of guests for 3 Point Podcast is getting pretty good. Authors, play-by-play. I mean, we could do like a rip of just all the authors we've had on, a rip of all the like sports play-by-play guys that we've had on. So yeah, I mean, first of all, we appreciate them both taking time out to chat with us, but it's always a good sign, Ted, when you do these interviews and we almost have to like force it to stop. Whenever we're done talking to some of these guests, we're like, man, we could have talked to them for like 2 hours. We could have talked to them for like 3 hours. And that's how both of these interviews were. So that's always a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to our next one. I'm not going to jinx us, but I'm going to tell you right now, we have lined up another fun interview talking some baseball next week. We'll talk baseball with the Baseball 100s, Joe Posnanski. And, he just has a tremendous book on his viewpoint of the top 100 players of all time. I'm really looking forward to that discussion next time.
Yeah, another author. We love baseball, and I know you and Jared have been through that book. I haven't dipped into that book, but I know enough about it to talk to him, and then just talking about being an author. So that'll be a really cool one too.
All right. Well, this one's come to a close. The 3 Point Podcast brought to you by the Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center. The Memorial Orthopedic Walk-In Clinic is available for those sports-related injuries Mondays through Fridays, 8 to noon. No appointment is needed. Make sure you follow the Wellness Center on Facebook. I want to also say thanks again to our other great partners. They include AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Nichols Painting, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, the Shiawassee County Fair, and ALS of Michigan. The Z92.5, the Castle Game of the Week coming up Friday night, September 12th. Lake Fenton at Owasso. The Trojans coming off a couple of wins to start the season. Watch out for OHS. And again, I want to thank our guest, author John U. Bacon. Make sure you look for his new book, The Gales of November, The Untold Story of the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's coming out in October. You can go online, as he said, and order it now, and it'll show up at your door, whether you want the audio copy or I like the real book, man. I like to read it, the hard copy for sure. And also thanks to West Michigan Whitecaps play-by-play guy, Dan Hasty. Peace and love, everybody. Be kind. Thanks for listening.